This is my 2-week diet plan by Edward Sayers. So the athlete that I was given to make a 2-week diet plan for was a female rugby player. This rugby player was aged 26 and she was obviously female, and she weighed approximately 69 kilograms with a height of 5'6". And before I started anything, I had to work out the METs. The average woman is suggested to consume about 2,000 calories per day, but whereas my athlete obviously does a lot of exercise, working out the METs allowed me to find out how many extra calories I had to add on to their diet to make sure that they maintained their body weight, because that was my goal at the end of the 2 weeks, was for them to maintain their weight and not gain or lose any. To work out the metabolic value, first I just averaged the value from the exercises that they do during the day. So the average that I decided on was about 7 on the metabolic value scale. And then what I needed to do was times this by 3.5, and then times the sum of that by the weight of the athlete. Then after that, divide that by 200, and then that would be the calories burned per minute. And then I needed to times that by 120, because that would be the duration of how long each exercise was. So I had to average how long I thought each session would go on for, and I averaged it to around 2 hours. So therefore, I times it by 120, which gave me a value of 1,014 calories added on. And then I also needed to take into consideration the fact that they would be doing more than one session a day. So then I times this value by 3. And 1,014 times 3 is 3,042. So then I added that on to the 2,000 calories that they're suggested to consume in a day, and I averaged that to around 5,000 calories per day as a kind of estimate as to how many calories they need to have a day. So what I've done in my diet plan is try to get their calorific intake as close to 5,000 as I possibly can. Okay, so this is the first day that I gave to my athlete. So as you can see, I started off their breakfast with a melon and crunchy bran pot with a protein shake, which is a Golden Standard Whey. This contained 37 gram of proteins and 36 grams of carbs and 10 grams of fats. The vitamins that it also included were vitamin A, B, and C. The reason why I particularly decided to give them the protein shake, is because of the fact that it contained vitamin B, and this is very helpful with the breakdown and release of energy from food, and it keeps the nervous system nice and healthy. So it would allow them to be much more active and ready for the sessions that they are about to partake in. And then also the minerals that the breakfast included were calcium, phosphorus, iron, and potassium. The phosphorus and calcium are very good with building strong bones, and especially with the calcium, it's good at regulating muscle contractions. So similar to the vitamin B, so this would also make them much more ready for the session that they're about to go ahead in. And altogether, this breakfast contained 388 calories. And then during this flexibility session that went on for a duration of 2 hours, I gave my athlete a 500 milliliter bottle of water to keep them nice and hydrated whilst they were doing their session. And then once the session had finished, I gave them a 70-gram cup of Brazil nuts with another 300 milliliter bottle of water. And this contained 9 grams of protein, 8 grams of fat, and 8 grams of carbs and 44 grams of fat. And the reason why I gave them this pot is because I believe that fats are a much more efficient source of energy than carbohydrates. So the fact that it has 44 grams of fat compared to the 8 grams of carbs, I feel like this would then help them much more in their afternoon sessions where they'll be in the gym. The minerals and vitamins. So the vitamins that this little snack included were vitamin B and E. But what I'm focusing on in the minerals, even though it has selenium, magnesium, and manganese, I was mainly focusing on the copper within the Brazil nuts, because the copper produce red and white blood cells, which trigger the release of iron from the hemoglobin, the substance that carries oxygen around the body. So this would be very beneficial for transferring oxygen around the body, which would be very helpful as more of a recovery process, and also it will help them when they are doing their gym session later on in the afternoon. So for their main lunch meal, I gave them a tuna and avocado salad sandwich with a 500 milliliter glass of coconut milk. So the tuna and avocado sandwich was good because it had elements of protein in it, which is good for my athlete. High levels of carbs, but again, the high levels of fat are good because it is a much more effective type of energy, and it allows them to work more efficiently, in my opinion. Vitamins that this meal included were B, C, E, and K, and minerals that it included are things such as iron, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, zinc, and selenium. Particularly focusing on the iron, which is important in making red blood cells, which helps to carry the oxygen around the body, much like the copper in the Brazil nuts. Particularly within this lunch meal, one of the reasons why I gave the coconut milk is because it's very high in unsaturated fats. So and it was also very, very calorific, but in a good way. And if I need my athlete to consume an average of 5,000 calories per day, giving them something like coconut milk, which is very high in calories but is also very healthy for my athlete, is a very good way of getting the calories up to the expected target. So after lunch they had a 2-hour gym session where again I gave them a 500 milliliter bottle of water to keep them hydrated. Then after their gym session I gave them a protein shake, a Gold Standard Whey, which contained 24 grams of protein, which was important because the proteins are very good for rebuilding microfibril tears within the muscles, which will therefore help my athletes to recover at a much faster rate after a vigorous gym session for a duration of 2 hours, because that's a long time in the gym. And then an hour after that, I gave them a crunchy granola with berries and cherries, and another 500 milliliter glass of coconut milk. So this contained 15 grams of proteins, 52 grams of carbs, and 82 grams of fat. It contained vitamins B, C, E, and K, and contained iron, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, zinc, and selenium. And this snack contained 1,513 calories, and this is mainly because of the coconut milk, which again, as said before, is very, very beneficial for raising the level of calories. However, it's still being a very healthy way of doing so. And then after this, they endured in an hour-long session of fartlek training, which was focusing on their speed, which would be needed as a rugby player, where again they were given a 500 milliliter bottle of water. And then for their evening meal, I gave them a lemony chicken stew with couscous, with a blueberry smoothie. This is very, very high in protein, which is very good because throughout the day they've had quite a long day, and the proteins in that, as I said before, will help with microfibril tears and the recovery process. High in carbs, but not so high in fats. But I wasn't really focusing on giving them more energy at this point because the day had finished and they didn't really need it anymore. And then it contained vitamin C as well. And overall, this meal contained 1,046 calories. So adding up all the calories within this day, it added up to 5,120 calories, which is slightly over what I averaged for a day, but it's pretty close, so I'm happy with that. Moving on to my athlete's second day, I started them at around 7 o'clock in the morning with a 230 gram pot of oats with a 500 milliliter glass of coconut milk, 17 grams of proteins, 56 grams of carbs, and I think that's meant to say 67 grams of fats, not 607, sorry, with vitamins B and C, containing calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and zinc. And the reason why I gave them this meal is because, as I said before, with the coconut being very, very high in calories, this is just a very good way to give them a lot of energy at the start of the day. Because as you can see over in the corner here, this breakfast meal contains 1,169 calories. So this is a very good way of getting them a lot of energy first thing in the morning to help them with their vigorous gym session from 9 to 11 o'clock, where they were given a 330 milliliter bottle of water each hour to keep them nice and hydrated, and then afterwards they consumed a protein shake to help with recovery, because again it's high in proteins. And for their lunch meal, I gave them a liver and broccoli and carrots with orange juice. And the reason why I gave them the liver in particular is because it's very high in zinc, which gives them a lot of energy to do something as enduring as a cycling machine, which they'll be doing at around 1 o'clock. But with the lunch meal, it contained vitamins B, C, and K, and contained minerals such as zinc, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Particularly focusing on the magnesium here, which is very helpful to turn the food that we eat into energy. So the more we have of that, the more energy can be used from the food that we eat. This meal was quite low in calories, but that wasn't too much of a problem for me because of the large calorific meal that I gave them in the morning. So this lunchtime meal was about 358 calories. And then they endured an hour-long session on the cycling machine, which after they consumed a 135 gram of Brazil nuts with another protein shake. So this is very high in proteins for recovery, not so high in carbs, but again very high in fats, which is a good source of energy, which would be good for the session just after. And then it's got vitamin A and C in it, potassium, iron, calcium, selenium, copper, magnesium, and manganese. Again with the Brazil nuts, particularly focusing on the copper within them, which is good for carrying oxygen around the body, which would be good for a endurance event such as swimming, which is also good for the respiratory system. So the transportation of oxygen would be very helpful within such an event. And also the calcium, which is very good for helping with muscular contractions, where around 4 o'clock they'll be doing a swimming activity. I feel as though the calcium would be very beneficial for that because it will help with the muscle contractions. So at 3 o'clock they'll consume a 330 milliliter bottle of water just before they do the swimming at 4 o'clock. And after that they'll consume another 500 milliliter glass of coconut milk. And then that brings us to 7 o'clock in the evening, where they'll have lamb and sweet potato and leek, and a bottle of water with that. This meal it's very high in proteins, which would be good for the recovery through the whole day, especially with that vigorous gym session in the morning. Even though they have had the protein shakes throughout the day, I felt as though giving them a very high protein meal in the evening will make sure that they're nice and ready for the next day. Very high in the carbs because of the sweet potatoes. Because what I did is I gave them I gave them 5 sweet potatoes with that meal, which really did make the amount of carbohydrates rocket up. And not too high on fats, but like I said with the evening before, wasn't too fussed about that because they didn't really need much more energy for the rest of the day. So I wasn't too bothered about giving them a meal that was very high in fats, containing vitamins B, C, and K. Vitamin B is good for the breakdown and release of energy, and again, as said before, it keeps the nervous system nice and healthy. So if any damage has been caused to the nervous system throughout the day from the vigorous energy, hopefully the vitamin B within this meal will help repair that for the next day of training. And then minerals, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and potassium. So this meal came to a calorific total of 1,366, and adding all of the calories throughout the day up, it comes to a total of 5,017, which is much closer to the calorific goal that I set for my athlete. So overall, this is a very good day.